Number 10. Based on the SY Territory Ghia Turbo, it was FPV's first and only non-Falcon model, launched on 29 February 2008 and built only until early 2009. A very short run that makes it a bit of a unicorn today. Under the bonnet sat the familiar 4-liter turbocharged Barra Inline 6, tuned to 270 kilowatts and 550 Newton-meters, all fed through a 6-speed ZF automatic and full-time all-wheel drive. FPV and the Aussie press happily touted it as the most powerful 6-cylinder SUV in the local market, and the numbers back up the bragging. 0 to 100 in just 5.9 seconds from a roughly 2.1-ton brick is no joke. Big Brembo front brakes and retuned suspension tried to keep that mass under control, turning the F6X into a surprisingly capable point-to-point weapon, even if it still leaned more angry fridge than sports car in the corners. Only 251 units were made before FPV pulled the plug in February 2009, making it one of the rarest modern FPVs. Number 9. Built on the facelifted VY Series 2 platform released in mid-2003, the updated Maloo arrived in October with more power, sharper looks, and proper limited build cred. Just 312 standard Maloos and 361 Maloo R8s were produced in VY Series 2. Under the bonnet sat the familiar all-alloy 5.7-liter LS1 V8, but with revised intake, exhaust, and engine calibration, power jumped to 285 kilowatts and torque to 510 Newton-meters, feeding the rear wheels through either a T56 6-speed manual or heavy-duty 4L65E 4-speed auto and a standard limited-slip diff. Factory figures claim 0 to 100 in just 5.3 seconds for the manual and a 13.5-second pass over 400 meters, numbers that make this ute more like a 2-seat muscle coupe with a tray on the back. Number 8. When Ford launched the FG Falcon range in 2008, the G6E Turbo was basically the executive express of the family. It sat at the top of the new G-Series, which replaced the old Fairmont and Fairmont Ghia badges and combined Euro-style trim with very Aussie firepower. Under the bonnet was the 4-liter DOHC Barra Inline 6 with a big turbo strapped on, good for 270 kilowatts and 533 Newton-meters, all driving the rear wheels through a 6-speed ZF automatic. That engine wasn't just strong, it was clever. In the right conditions, it could briefly overboost, nudging power toward the mid-300 kilowatt zone and torque well beyond 533 Newton-meters, turning polite overtakes into, "Whoops, I'm already doing the limit" moments. Independent figures quote 0 to 100 in roughly 5.1 seconds and a quarter mile in the low 13s. Seriously quick for a full-size four-door. Number 7. The BF Falcon itself was an evolution of the BA, launched in 2005 as the final iteration of that platform. FPV's BF GT arrived as part of this facelift, keeping the legendary 5.4-liter Boss 290 V8, but wrapping it in sharper styling, cleaner emissions, and smarter hardware. The Boss 290 remained the star, a quad-cam 32-valve V8 making 290 kilowatts and 520 Newton-meters, driving the rear wheels. The really big news was the gearbox. For the first time, FPV's Falcon range offered the German ZF 6HP26 6-speed automatic alongside the Tremec 6-speed manual, giving buyers the choice between old-school row-your-own and silky paddle-free wafting. This nearly 2-ton sedan can sprint from 0 to 100 in just 5 seconds before reaching a top speed of 269 kilometers per hour. Number 6. Launched in 2006 as the flagship of HSV's new VE-based E-Series range, the GTS was the car that took Holden's fresh Commodore chassis and asked, "How much V8 and grip can we squeeze in before someone complains?" HSV had already been running the LS 2.6-liter Gen 4 alloy V8, but for the E-Series, they revised the exhaust and calibration, lifting output to 307 kilowatts and 550 Newton-meters. The real party trick, though, was magnetic ride control. Delphi magneto-rheological dampers with switchable performance and track modes. Previously, the sort of tech you associated with Corvettes and Ferraris rather than an Aussie four-door. HSV's own figures quote 0 to 100 in 4.96 seconds for the manual, with the quarter-mile dispatched in a tick over 13 seconds. Properly quick for a full-sized family sedan. Number 5. Earlier BABF versions had worn Typhoon and Tornado badges, but with the FG Falcon update, the car was simply renamed F6 and relaunched as FPV's Hero Turbo 6 sedan. Under the bonnet sat the upgraded 4-liter DOHC Turbo Barra Inline 6, now making 310 kilowatts and 565 Newton-meters, a 40 kilowatt and 15 Newton-meter jump over the previous BFF6. On paper, that makes the F6 seriously stout, and the stopwatch agrees. Independent figures put 0 to 100 at about 4.8 seconds, and the quarter mile around 13.3 seconds. Contemporary reviews went nuts for it. Australian testers called the 2008 F6 not only FPV's best car, but quite probably the greatest performance car Australia has ever produced, praising its huge mid-range shove, strong brakes and chassis balance, and even noting it was lighter and quicker than the GT-V8. Number 4. The Bullet Roadster SS is one of those wonderfully mad Aussie ideas. Take something as cute as a Mazda MX-5, throw most of it away, and replace it with a space-frame chassis and a supercharged Lexus V8. Born in the late 1990s out of John Bettini's MX-5-based prototypes, the Bullet story ran from rotary and Rover V8 engines to a wide-body roadster built mostly from new fiberglass composite panels bonded to a tubular frame, with only the doors and boot lid still Mazda. The big step was swapping in Toyota's 4-liter 1UZ FE quad-cam V8, offered naturally aspirated in the Roadster and with a Sprintec supercharger in the SS. In SS form, the supercharged 1UZ FE is quoted at about 325 kilowatts and 575 Newton-meters, driving the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual. With a very light space-frame chassis, adjustable suspension, and 18-inch wheels, contemporary tests and specs put 0 to 100 at roughly 4.8 seconds and the quarter mile at about 13.5. Very serious pace for something that still looks vaguely like an MX-5 at 10 paces. Number 3. The 2008 HSVW 427 was HSV's way of saying, "Happy 20th birthday to us," by dropping a Corvette Z06 heart into a VE Commodore and sending it to the gym. The W in the name honors HSV boss Tom Walkinshaw, while 427 refers to the engine capacity in cubic inches. Under the bonnet lived the 7-liter LS7 V8, tuned to 375 kilowatts and 640 Newton-meters, driving only through a strengthened Tremec 6-speed manual to the rear wheels. Magnetic ride control with stiffer calibration, a beefed-up limited-slip diff, massive 6-piston front brakes, and unique 20-inch wheels completed the Super Commodore recipe. HSV originally talked about building 427 cars, later capping it at 200, but the global financial crisis killed demand, and production stopped at just 137 units, with 3 going to New Zealand. Weighing nearly 1.9 tons, the W427 could still launch to 100 in roughly 4.7 seconds and cover the quarter mile in just 12.6, putting it firmly in the bothers European super sedans category. Number 2. When HSV rolled out the Z-Series in October 2004, the GTO Coupe based on the new VZ Monaro was the Hero two-door. Under the bonnet sat GM's 6-liter LS2 Gen 4 alloy V8 with HSV's own calibration, 297 kilowatts and 530 Newton-meters, 10.9 to 1 compression, electronic throttle, and a stainless dual exhaust, so it sounded exactly like a proper Aussie muscle coupe is supposed to. Factory numbers claim 0 to 100 in just 4.6 seconds, and the standing 400 meters in 12.9 seconds, putting it firmly in the "this is not just a pretty Monaro" category. The Z-Series GTO Coupe ran through to 2006 alongside the final VZ Monaro, closing the book on Australian V8 coupes. Number 1. Built in 2007 to mark half a century since racer Gary Cooper founded Elfin in 1957, the 50th is a limited run of just 5 cars, all painted in Gary Cooper gold with a removable coupe-style hardtop, bonnet scoop, polished wheels, and burgundy leather trim with monogrammed headrests. Underneath, it's still an MS-8 Streamliner, a hand-built steel space frame, GRP body, and a mid-front 5.7-liter GM LS1 V8 driving the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual and limited-slip diff, derived from the regular MS-8, which already made about 245 kilowatts and 465 newton-meters. The 50th anniversary twist is the partnership with Walkinshaw Performance. Elfin planned the cars so they could run a supercharger kit, and at least one number 1 car left the factory blown, with contemporary figures quoting roughly 350 kilowatts and 660 newton-meters from the LS1 in a body weighing about 1,100 kilograms. Elfin's CEO cheerfully talked about 0 to 100 in roughly 3 seconds and a 400-meter dash in about 10.